Anytime you beg another man to set you free, you will never be free. Freedom is something that you have to do for yourself.
Okay, so yesterday Justice Mellor released the written judgment. Came out while I was watching DevCon, and I went to a baseball game with my dad and my kids yesterday, so I was really tired. I didn't get the chance to make a video about it, but I got the chance to read through most of it. I probably read about 85% of it. There's a little bit of it that I skipped through just because it wasn't really that important. I mean, it's really long documents, 280 pages. But I read the overwhelming majority of it, and there's certain things I found surprising, but much of it was unsurprising. The thing that I thought was interesting was that Justice Mellor had, I think on 10 different occasions, referenced what he presumed Satoshi would say or think or do. And he's not really in a position to know that. Which I was surprised to see that he inferred those things in his judgment. But all in all, it was pretty much what I expected. I expected it to be damning for Craig, just based on the oral verdict he gave at the end of the trial. It seems pretty obvious to me that the written judgment was going to come down quite hard on Craig. And it did. I mean, the naysayers are happy to throw around the written judgment as proof that everything is kind of settled now, and throwing around the idea that he's going to go away, even though he's said explicitly that that's not what he's going to do. And right away he said he's going to appeal, so I mean, it's going to go on, it's going to drag on for another year or so, provided that appeal is granted, but I think there's enough grounds that he'll get an appeal granted. I could be wrong. I was wrong about the outcome. I read into the case wrong, so always keep an open mind about what could happen, or what could or could not happen. I stated in my last video that I wanted to mention Robert Anton Wilson pretty much explicitly for that reason. He's someone who I really like because he introduced me to the idea of maybe logic.
Maybe logic was invented by John von Neumann in 1933. Von Neumann is the unappreciated genius of modern science. Scientists appreciate him, but the general public, I don't think, has ever heard of him. He wrote one of the best books on quantum mechanics. He was one of the pioneers of programmable computers. We wouldn't have internet without him. Anyway, maybe logic, one of his major inventions, instead of dividing everything into true and false like Aristotle, which only applies in the abstract. Aristotelian logic only applies if you ignore the sensory, sensual, space-time continuum in which we live. If you take into context we live in a real universe, which we're touching things, bumping into things, kissing things, loving things, hating things, throwing rocks at things, and so on, you realize that most of our perceptions are in the maybe mode. They're not yes or no, they're not true or false, they're just maybes. I think maybe logic is probably the greatest invention of the 20th century.
This idea that you should give up being certain and kind of abdicate any belief whatsoever. This idea that belief is the death of intelligence. As soon as you believe something, you kind of stop looking for alternative possibilities, or at least you've somewhat closed off your mind, at least, to the opportunity that something else could be true. Really, I wanted to emphasize that. Yeah, we don't really know what's going on. There's a lot of people, everyone has their own opinion about who Satoshi is. Everyone has their own theories and ideas. But they're really just that. Nobody really has direct knowledge of who the hell actually created Bitcoin. And if they do, they're not telling anyone. And really, like, Craig didn't present solid evidence. He didn't present any evidence that he was Satoshi in the trial. So just from that alone, it seems quite likely that it wasn't his intent to win. And everyone who kind of doesn't believe in Craig is saying that it's just obvious that this guy is a fraud. And I'm open to that. Like I said from the beginning, I don't know. I'm not in a position to know who created Bitcoin. I have my suspicions, and that's it. And I don't even like to label them as beliefs. I just think it's a foolish way of thinking in general. And I can't help but think about the suit that Craig wore, like this Joker suit that he wore in the video that he posted of the Joker performing his fatality.
The Joker wins. Fatality.
And if you watch that, it was my friend Taylor who pointed this out to me. So shout out to my friend Taylor for pointing that out to me, but he pointed out to me that Joker clip, the fatality. He shoots a false shot. He shoots a bang sign out of the gun before he shoots the fatal shot. And that's kind of interesting to note. A lot of people have kind of said this. It's very speculative, but they've said that it's always been Craig's intention to win on the appeal. And I don't want to discount it just because it's possible. I mean, I'd say it's fairly unlikely, but there's certain questions that haven't been answered yet. Like the question of the 26.9 BTC that was sent to the Genesis block. I said in my videos before, someone from Binance should have known which account sent that. You'd think it would have been leaked by now, right? As far as I know, I mean, the crypto news cycle is crazy. There's so much to keep up with, it's impossible to keep up with the crypto news cycle. I mean, you can keep up with the main stories, but there's so much happening in the crypto space that you can never really keep up with it. Sorry, I'm in Canada now, so the mosquitoes are driving me nuts. Yeah, I don't think there was any closure on who sent the 26.9 BTC to the Genesis block, and it's kind of hinted in the ruling. Justice Mellor kind of mentioned something about the Genesis block. I'll put the exact quote in the video here. But kind of hinting at something that if Craig was Satoshi, he'd have certain control over the Genesis block, and using that as a point through which he expected some sort of closure. Like if he wanted Craig to win the case, he wanted Craig to kind of win that by demonstrating control of the Genesis block. And really, if Craig was always planning on winning on the appeal, I mean, now it says in the judge's report that if he could prove control of the Genesis block, that would satisfy what he wants to see as proof for who Satoshi is. Now, I'm just speculating that it was Craig. Craig, as I said before in one of my other videos, Craig did some testing on Binance, and he said that he ran a bunch of money through Binance to see how much money he could put through Binance through like a server that was spitting out different email addresses to produce as many accounts as they possibly could, pretty much, on Binance, just to see how much money they could push through it. And I mean, it's not outside of the realm of possibility that they left money there, or that through the process of doing that, he earned some money that he left on Binance. Through one of those, spoof accounts that they created. Now, someone at Binance would know that. But, again, to the people that are holding on to hope that Craig is Satoshi, that he has some way of proving it, I mean, this would be it. I mean, he'd either have to prove now that he can move coins from the Genesis block, or that's about it. I mean, he's going to have to live with the fact that he can't prove it. And the rest of the community is going to have to live with the fact that he can't prove it. And I mean, the community has responded in interesting ways since this trial has ended. It's been fun to watch the reactions. Yeah, the interesting thing is, sorry, the mosquitoes are driving me crazy on that walk, so I had to move over here. But the thing I wanted to say about the way the community reacted to the trial is that it shook out the cult of personality, the people who were really into BSV because of their belief that Craig is Satoshi. Those people will probably back out if they now believe he's a fraud, but I think it's really shown through to me that most of the people are in it because they want to see what BSV can do technologically, not because they believe Craig is Satoshi, but because they believe in the idea of a scalable Bitcoin, extremely low fees and high transaction capabilities. So, I mean, that's why I want to build on BSV now. I'm going to spend the next year developing on BSV, learning to develop on BSV. There's a couple of projects that I have in mind I'm going to start on as kind of introductory portfolio projects, but there's obviously bigger things I have in mind of what we could do with things like Money Cash, the new stablecoin coming out on BSV. That's going to be a kind of a game changer for people who want to develop and use micropayments in a stablecoin. That'll be great. The low transaction fees on that. So yeah, I think it's an exciting time still, and even if we can just get past the bullshit of this whole trial, nobody really cares. I mean, the people who care, the people who want to use it to attack BSV. I mean, the people within BSV, I think the most of us now, we're in it to see what BSV can do, not because of who Craig Wright claimed he was or who he may be. So that's just what I wanted to add there. I mean, calling everyone in the community calling themselves retarded, it's kind of it's a good cell phone. I mean, owning up to the title that everyone wants to throw at us, kind of owning it and turning it into something that, you know, fuck you, we're just going to call ourselves retards. I like the attitude of that, as long as it doesn't stick around for too long, because have a negative impact. Just kind of like don't buy Monero was a really bad slogan for Monero. Yeah, just another point that I wanted to add in here. This whole idea of the BSV community calling themselves retards, I feel like it's positive in the short term, but in the long term, it's not what we want to be telling ourselves. I think we should build up a positive self-image. It's just kind of something you should always do. So if you're doing it for a laugh for a little while, just kind of take the L and kind of deal with the haters that want to shove it in our face, then sure. But really, we've kind of all demonstrated now that we're here for the technology. The people that are still in it are to see what BSV can do, not because they wanted to see if Craig was Satoshi or not. And really, I think more of the people in BSV are smarter than they give themselves credit for. There's a lot of people doubting themselves, just they feel foolish. They expected some sort of certainty from Craig that they didn't get. Don't do that. Don't beat yourself up. I mean, for most of us, it's the tech that speaks for itself now, and yeah, it's the tech that speaks for itself. Just who gives a fuck what other people think? Let's just do our thing and see what we can do with it. We just put that behind us. It might be, if we're going to have to soon, it might just be another year before we can fully put it behind us, but eventually we're going to put this behind us, and it's just going to be a matter of who can compete, who can do what, and who can do it for cheaper. And it's looking like BSV can do a lot, and it can do it for a lot cheaper than everyone else. So, I mean, the economics of that are going to play out eventually. And I think that's why you got the professional haters just working all day to discredit BSV or anyone who wants to be part of BSV. So that also says a lot. Just that they have people constantly talking about it while saying it's irrelevant. This is bullshit. You know who you are. But yeah, I just wanted to add that in. Yeah, now if you subscribe to this idea that everything is kind of scripted. Now, a lot of people have stated that they think all of this is a scripted thing, that Craig couldn't be who he is just authentically, that he must be tied up with intelligence agencies, which I kind of subscribe to that idea as well. Or I'm at least very open-minded to that idea. Like I said, I try to use this idea of maybe logic, just if something's possible, if it's a possibility, consider it as a possibility, don't discount any possibility, just be open-minded to any possibility. I mean, you can add weight, add a greater degree of suspicion to some ideas over others, but never really come to a certain degree, or never really come to certainty on anything. Just always remain open-minded. So from that, I'm kind of open-minded to this idea that everything's scripted, especially in finance like this. Kind of just two groups of billionaires, if you look at the trial, like Calvin Ayre and everything behind BSV. Then these other groups of billionaires, COPA. I mean, that world, it doesn't work the same way as our world. And I'm even open-minded to the idea that somewhere behind the scenes a deal was drafted between these two so that things play out this way. And it looks a certain way to the public, but behind the scenes, things aren't what they seem. I think it happens more than people realize. Oh, well, not in everything, not as much as conspiracy theorists like to think, but it does happen. And I don't know, if you're open-minded to that idea, then I couldn't imagine them giving Craig the win without a shakeout event. Without an event that shakes out people who don't really know and are just speculating, or people who are I don't know, loyal to Craig rather than the technology itself, rather than the idea of what Bitcoin was supposed to be itself. I mean, yeah, if that was going to happen, there'd have to be that shakeout event for that to happen. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't be a very good plan, I don't think. So yeah, I'm kind of open to that idea that that could be what's going on. But really, I don't know. I'm just kind of looking at things as they are and making the best guess I can make. And sometimes that's going to be wrong. But yeah, with this, I really want to see how things play out. Like, I don't consider everything to be settled until the fat lady sings, until the appeal process is either denied or concludes. So with this, I really want to wait and see what happens now. I think Craig has 21 days to officially submit his appeal application. So within 3 weeks, we'll have that appeal application. I don't know if that'll be made public, but should his appeal application be made public, I'll make a video about that as well. I'm going to start making some regular videos now. Decided that I'm going to take the next year off, next year or so, and learn to develop. I want to learn to develop on blockchain. I'm going to learn to develop on BSV to start. I'm really excited about what the scalability and SPV and a whole bunch of these things that are coming out with that are coming out on BSV, like the new stablecoin, what that's going to enable in terms of development. And really the whole idea of why I wanted to make this channel is to kind of, yeah, I wanted to redo this just because I wanted to say this more clearly than I had in the other recording. I made this channel because I wanted to emphasize and highlight that pretty much most of the human population has been financially enslaved by central banks, and that we're taken advantage of by big tech, who pretty much harvests our data and sells it. And that's kind of a twofold attack on our financial freedom. Although both of these are achieved consensually, where we're tricked into it, we're pretty much forced onto a system where we have to do that. And that we should be building alternatives to that system where we're not being exploited and enslaved by people who do nothing and expect our labor in exchange for doing nothing. And really, I wanted to highlight the development that's happening within crypto that's focusing on empowering people rather than controlling them more. That's going to give us more power over our own lives and finance rather than giving it to someone else so that they can control us in some way by using leverage over technology or finance to get us to work for them in exchange for nothing. And really, I think just in the last few months, I've really decided that I don't want to do that from the sidelines. I'd rather do that personally, be personally part of that and develop and be part of the people that are building like the financial system that's going to exist in the future, and the systems that are going to manage all of the technology that we use. And I think for security reasons, because of artificial intelligence and hacking, that a lot of almost everything that we do in terms of technology is going to have to be moved onto a blockchain in order to secure it. And I think there's a gold mine of an opportunity there for people who are looking for, I guess, a field that isn't going to be impacted by that. There's probably going to be a huge amount of work to be done in terms of securing everything against vulnerabilities that will exist if they're not secured on the blockchain. So yeah, I really want to be personally part of that, and that's something I'm going to highlight in this channel now, is my own journey to learn to develop, and I'll just kind of take everyone along the way with me now. Yeah, so every week or so I'll make an update, just what I'm doing in terms of learning to develop on blockchain. So I don't have a whole lot of coding experience. I did like a university course where they taught like a chapter on coding. So that was about it. And for the last week or so, I've just been kind of learning through a couple apps that I found. So Solo Learn, and what's the other one called? Programming Hub. But I got to find something specific to TypeScript. So I'm going to look for that still. There's a few resources that I found specific for learning on BSV that I'm going to be using as well. So I'm going to shout those out in a separate video. But yeah, that's what I'll start doing now. I mean, I'm back in Canada. My friend is having a kid, so I've decided to stay here until that happens. So I'll probably stay here about a year. A little less than a year, probably like 9 months. I think his baby's due in November. So probably stick around for a few months after his baby's born, and then I'll kick out of the country in the middle of winter so I don't have to endure the whole thing. But yeah,